let's rewind to a moment the world never saw coming, when the crown itself shook, not from a scandal splashed across headlines or a political feud, but from something far more personal. This wasn't about a headline. This was about betrayal. Not from an outsider, but from within the royal walls, from the woman Charles had once risked everything for. Camilla Parker Bowles had fought her way into the monarchy's inner circle. Decades ago, she was the side figure, the controversial presence who people whispered about behind tabloid covers. But eventually, she wore the crown beside Charles as Queen Consort, fully accepted, or so it seemed. But deep down, she never forgot where she started. And sometimes, those who feel they were never truly welcomed end up trying to carve their own legacy, even if it means slicing into someone else's. This whole thing started quietly. Camilla operating out of Clarence's house, staying out of the spotlight, running her little office with an iron grip dressed up in silk gloves. On paper, it looked harmless. A few royal estate documents shuffled around, some old heirlooms recatalogued, a few antique paintings earmarked for charity exhibitions. But behind the scenes, something else was brewing. Charles, now king, had been going about his usual royal business at Buckingham Palace. Mornings of Earl Grey, crisp suits, and a mountain of paperwork on his desk like always, until one file, just one, changed everything. It was thick, stamped with routine markings from Clarence's house, probably meant to be skimmed and signed, but when he flipped through it, something inside him shifted. These weren't just dry estate notes. These were changes, big ones. Queen Elizabeth's jewelry, the same pearls and diamonds she wore across decades of history, being moved. Lands in Scotland, her sanctuaries of peace, reassigned. Priceless art being transferred, auctioned, redistributed. Some items were supposedly headed to museums, others to be liquidated. For modernization, that word alone, modernization, was a dagger. But the final page? That one line broke him. Approved, Camilla, Queen Consort. No mention of the king. No signature from him. No heads up. Just done, stamped, decided. Charles sat frozen, staring at it. It wasn't just an overstep, it was a quiet rebellion. The woman he had defended in front of the whole world had gone behind his back and touched what he once promised to protect with his life, his mother's legacy. He remembered her words. Queen Elizabeth had told him in one of their final conversations at Windsor that her personal possessions, those jewels, those paintings, those quiet lands tucked away in the hills, were more than items. They were the soul of the crown. Preserve them, Charles, she'd said. They are not ours, they are history's. But now, that history was being split up like pieces on a chessboard. He summoned Camilla that same night. No entourage, no royal guards, just a man and a woman in a room that used to hold love. She greeted him warmly, even offered dinner, but he walked in with a file, laid it on the table, and said what needed to be said. You approved these, he told her, without me. That jewelry, those lands, they were my mother's. You didn't ask. You didn't even tell me. Camilla tried to stay calm. She said she was helping, that he was always too busy, that these things were just collecting dust, that it was for charity, for modernization, for him. But Charles wasn't buying it, not anymore. Because when love meets betrayal, even a king has to draw the line. Charles didn't sleep that night. He tossed and turned, staring at the ceiling of Buckingham Palace with memories flooding his mind like an unstoppable tide. The early years with Camilla, their whispered promises in hidden gardens, the letters, the scandal, the judgment. They had endured so much, but this wasn't just personal, this was sacred. By morning, he was no longer just a heartbroken husband. He was the king, and a king doesn't let deception rot the house he's sworn to protect. He called Anne. If there was one person who could be trusted to face the fire without flinching, it was his sister. She was never one for games, never swayed by charm or PR. Anne didn't just serve the monarchy, she guarded it like a soldier with a sacred oath. He didn't sugarcoat a word. He showed her the file, his voice tight, trembling with anger and disbelief. Anne barely blinked as she flipped through the pages, but her silence was sharper than any reaction. When she reached the final page, the one with Camilla's lone signature, she exhaled slowly. Her jaw tightened. I'll handle this, she said. Anne got to work in ways only she could, quietly, methodically, without noise. She called on Edward, a loyal aide with decades of service and a knack for uncovering the hidden. He'd once tracked secret financial ties during Elizabeth's reign, and now he was asked to do it again, only this time the target was within the family. What they found was worse than Charles feared. The items weren't just being moved around, there was a full-blown scheme underneath the polished language. The jewels, the paintings, the land, Camilla had earmarked them for public good, but the money trail told another story. Shell companies, offshore accounts, anonymous transfers, every thread led to one name: Annabelle Elliot, Camilla's sister. Annabelle, once just a tasteful royal decorator, had been playing a very different game. With Camilla at the top, she had begun laying the foundation for a private real estate empire. The plan? Use funds from the sale of royal heirlooms to create luxury eco-resorts across Britain, a quiet little family dynasty operating behind the veil of charity and legacy preservation. And it didn't stop there. Tom Parker Bowles, Camilla's son, was lined up to design high-end menus for these properties. Laura Lopes, her daughter, was curating artwork for the lobbies and galleries. It was a full Parker Bowles production, family in the making, funded by the very crown they had sworn to uphold. When Anne placed the documents in front of Charles, his hands shook. He didn't speak at first. He just stared at the numbers, the signatures, the timelines. There were even emails. Camilla's own words: "It's time we secure our place, Anne. The Windsors never truly accepted us." And just like that, it clicked. All the polite smiles, the extra meetings, the push for modernization. It had never been about the crown. It had always been about legacy. Charles stood slowly. He didn't slam the desk this time. He didn't yell. His voice came out cold, steady, final. "She's out." Anne nodded. There would be no debate, no soft landing. He wasn't just punishing a betrayal. He was protecting history. The monarchy wasn't going to be sold off one painting at a time. A family meeting was called. No press, no royal aides, just the core: Charles, Anne, William, and Camilla. And this time, it wasn't going to be a conversation, it was going to be Judgment Day. The room felt colder than usual, despite the golden chandeliers glowing overhead. Buckingham Palace's inner conference hall had hosted dignitaries, presidents, kings, but tonight it was the stage for something far more raw. A reckoning. Charles sat at the head of the long oak table, his hands folded, his expression unreadable. Anne, razor sharp as ever, was to his right. William, silent but alert, took the opposite seat. And then Camilla entered. Alone, no fanfare, no royal grace, just a woman stepping into a room where everything she built was about to collapse. She looked around, confused by the lineup. Her voice cracked as she tried to maintain composure. "Charles, what's going on?" Charles didn't answer immediately. He pushed a thick folder toward her across the polished table. Inside it, evidence. Every bank transfer, every offshore company, every name. Her name, Annabelle's, Tom's, Laura's. It was all there. Camilla's eyes scanned the pages, then stopped. The blood drained from her face. She closed the file slowly, her hands trembling. "I was going to tell you," she whispered. "No, you weren't," Charles replied, his voice low, wounded but unshaken. "You only speak when the walls start closing in." Anne leaned forward, her voice sharp as a blade. "You tried to sell our mother's legacy to bankroll your own empire. Those weren't dusty heirlooms, Camilla. They were the backbone of this family. And you planned to trade them for luxury spas and branded tea rooms?" Camilla's lip quivered. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just wanted something that was truly ours. You all never looked at me as one of you. I've lived in shadows for decades, always second, always tolerated, never embraced. I thought maybe this was the way to finally stand on equal ground." William spoke for the first time. "Not like this. You don't stand on equal ground by burning down the history you swore to protect. This family has given you more than you ever imagined, and this is how you repay it?" Camilla reached for Charles's hand, desperate now. "I love you. I never stopped. Please, we can fix this. I'll stop everything. I'll call off the investments. We can make this go away." Charles pulled his hand back. "It's already done. The damage is done." Silence. Then he spoke again, voice steadier than before. "You'll retain your title, but your role ends here. No more royal privileges. No more decision-making. You'll return to Highgrove permanently. Your family will be cut off from any royal funding, effective immediately." Camilla let out a choked sob. "You're sending me away?" Charles nodded, his jaw clenched. Not as punishment, as protection for what remains of the monarchy and for what little remains of us. Camilla stood slowly, tears now streaming down her face. Her footsteps echoed as she walked out of the room for the last time as an insider. In the weeks that followed, Clarence's house emptied. Annabelle's resort plan collapsed under scrutiny. Tom's culinary deals were dropped. Laura quietly withdrew from the art world, her name too toxic to carry forward. At Highgrove, Camilla spent her days in isolation, surrounded by the gardens Charles once planted for her. The house was beautiful, but it echoed with regret. Charles returned to duty, more focused than ever. He visited his mother's grave often, leaving white roses and whispered apologies for not seeing it sooner. Anne remained the monarchy's iron shield. William, with Catherine, stepped deeper into his future role, determined to keep the family's legacy clean. And the monarchy endured, not untouched, but wiser. The crown, once nearly hijacked by quiet ambition, stood firm, reminded that its power doesn't come from titles, but from loyalty, sacrifice, and the weight of history no one has the right to sell.